1,800 hours. I'll silence my mobile device, and welcome to us all for the Finance Subcommittee meeting. I believe we have a quorum in attendance, and John and Eddie are going to give us an update where we stand financially as at the end of April. And we can also have a few other little discussions. Mr. Spang, please take it away.
Okay, thank you. I think we'd like to talk about the monthly report first, so I think I'll turn to Ed for that part.
Okay.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Al. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to share my screen here. It's basically the packet we emailed everyone.
You folks mind if I eat my dinner while I'm watching?
Did you bring some for everybody?
Of course.
Michelle, is that you that's the Zoom user? I just want to verify.
It is, Kate.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Ed, you're muted still.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Do you see my screen, the share screen?
Yes.
Okay. Thank good. So we have come to the end of April. So this is our monthly end of April report. We've completed 8 of our 10 school months, which brings about 73% of our year-to-date budget has been expended. And our little monthly box in here basically breaks down our original budget as of July 1 of 2021 of $139,585. What we've expended, $101,397,000. What's encumbered, and our reserve of $2.443, which is included in that $139,585. Also, I left the ESSER 3 carry forward, which we've discussed the last few months. After all of that, we have an unencumbered balance as of April 30th of $156,700. Here, quick on the narrative. We continue to forecast throughout the year. We have 6 weeks left throughout the school year. The major budget line items we're looking at are our health insurance, claims, transportation, utilities, and substitute lines. Very similar to last month when we or the last 2 months when we went in and we looked at those line items, budget line items, that some of them were in the negative, some of them in the positive. The team and I, we did a great job. We cleaned those up on the general fund. On the grant side, it's a little different because grants, you can't just move budget lines from one grant to the next. There are a few, for example, priority grant, priority district grant, you can move into alliance, which we did, and remove some individuals in there. There are 2 grants that are in a negative right now, which I want to point out, which is the Medicaid, which is showing a negative of $172,580.52. That's basically, we receive quarterly payments, but we book them in our bills. So once the bills come in or the payments come in, we apply it to what we've booked in our books. So once the state gives us our money, that 172 clearly goes down. We just get it every quarter. So by the end of June 30th, we should see that zero out. The second one is the Magnet School grant, is that grant 130. And I'll scroll down after I finish my narrative just so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Right now it's a negative $256,632.70. But the Magnet School tuition grant, grant 131, is showing a positive of 253. So once those two offset, it'll leave a little balance of about $3,300, which usually in the past the general fund covers. And also throughout the grants, we've been identifying any staff members that might have been in the general fund that should have been in the grants, and vice versa. So we've moved some staff members in there. I'm going to go scroll down to the next page, which is our our general fund and our grant summary breakdown page. Very similar up top is our general fund summary report, which I just broke down. It breaks it into our 5100 line, which is our salaries. 52 is our health insurance benefit line. 5300 is the purchase professional services. 5400 is purchase property services. 55 is other purchase services. 56 is supplies. 57 is program improvements. And then 5700 lines are our dues, fees, and staff development. So as you see, this is what was budgeted, 139,585. That's what our budget was for this fiscal year, 22. What we've expended, what's encumbered, and what is left as of April 30th, that 156,700. But that's unencumbered. That's anything throughout the, if we have to, if there's any facilities, things that pop up, or any last minute things, there's graduations, there's certain things throughout the next 6 weeks as we come to an end for the school years that, that money will, clearly that 156 will be used. The next tab is your grant fund summary report. That budget amount of $78 million in grants includes our big ESSER grants, and those are the ones that are 2 years and 3 years. What we've expended year to date, what's encumbered, and then what's the balance is 33 million. But remember, some of those grants are more than 2 or 3 years, so we'll be using it, if not this year, the following year. And then the next 4 or 5 or 6 pages are basically a breakdown of each line item, as I mentioned in the top summaries. As you can see here, and I'll go slowly, so if there's any questions, please stop me. Sorry about that. So the first page is really our salary lines. You'll see some areas where there's positive amounts. Those are vacancies we haven't covered. So that's why you'll see, for example, the supervisor, director line, 69,000, regular teachers, there's, we have vacancies in certain areas. Safety advocate, very similar, 27,000. And as you can see now, in the past, in the prior months, we had some negative numbers. We've had some big positive numbers. So we've kind of cleaned that up in the general fund in the last 2 months, as you can see. And I'll jump into the grants real quick, and then I'll turn it over to see if there's any questions. And here are our grants, page 7, as you can see. And you'll see some big amounts. Some of those are either, for example, your ESSER 2, $6 million, but that's for 2 years. Our ESSER 3, the $18 million that's left, that's for 3 years. We have initiatives that we have staff in there for the next few years. And I'm trying to get one of the negatives so you guys could see the Medicaid grant 74. That's the 172,000. Those are the ones we receive from the state quarterly. Once we receive those payments, we apply it to this grant. And then the last but not least is our magnet school tuition grant and our magnet school grants. Those two will offset each other, 256 and the 253, and then whatever is left over, the general fund will pay for it, which is about $3,300. And that's my monthly update. Are there any questions? Teresa?
How do we look coming towards the end in your estimation?
We're going to be closing the books at 0. That's why we keep monitoring those line items, whether it's transportation, health insurance, utilities, the subline. We do see a balance of 156,000, but as I mentioned before, there will be things throughout the next 6 weeks that we'll be using that money for. So.
Okay.
I don't have a question so much. I just want to say that these numbers look tremendously better. I'm really impressed actually how clean they are. So thank you guys for your work doing that.
Yes.
Thank you, Kate. I thank the finance team in general and everyone.
I can only imagine working with a new software system and updating the ledger entries have been a challenge over this past year, and I commend you both for all your efforts in doing this. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, any further questions on the budget?
No, just worried about what the city still needs.
I'm going to turn that over to John.
Yeah. Al, if this would be a good time.
Ed, can you take the document down?
Yes.
Thank you, John.
We thought we'd give you an update on the audit, I think is what Teresa's referring to. So Al, would this be a good time to start, or would you prefer to talk about the report a little?
Right. If committee members don't have any further questions on this, on the numbers for the end of April, I'd like to have a little discussion on that and clear that up on the audit. Okay.
So I made my last report was at the board meeting, described it where we were then. And at the time, I mentioned that their auditors had an open items list, as they called it, with 21 individual tasks on it. And I also mentioned that we had engaged a former auditor to help us make sure everything was in the correct form and exactly what our auditors were looking for. So we've been busy the last week, and what I can report is that 20 of the 21 items were sent to the consultant. There was some back and forth. Some of the things were camera ready. Others he thought needed some different headings or maybe explanations in different places, really to make them, I'd say, more user-friendly. So when the city auditors received them, it would be clear to them what exactly we were trying to say and how we were answering their questions. And I think maybe that will be something we'll do better on this year, is being a little more descriptive. But nevertheless, 20 of the 21 items, he finally passed approval, and they have since been sent to the city auditors. You do that. They have a portal, and it's pretty easy. You just drag your document over to their portal and release your mouse, and it's dropped in. So they've started looking them over. I imagine there still will be some questions, and those will continue the next day or two. The other item, though, has changed. So last week, the item that we had not complied with was it's called a payroll test that they do, where they come in, they take some random paychecks and they trace it back to the HR files, to the union contracts, the deductibles. And they had sampled a couple people in the summer and felt we had not answered that. And make a long story short, we asked them, could you send it again? They couldn't do that. They couldn't find it. One thing led to another, and they've told us that they're now satisfied with the payroll testing that they had done, and that they had looked at some things otherwise. So, however, there is an item that they wanted more information on, and what in simple terms, it was they wanted a listing of every transaction that occurred during the year. And it's quite a few. We, until early today, you just couldn't get that out of the system. Part of the problem was half of the year was spent on the old system, and half of the year was spent on both systems. So you couldn't go one place and get the detail that would match. And you really couldn't go into two places either. One of the systems, you had to do individual line items, meaning if we had on a line called, insurance expense, we'd have to go one way and print out some things. It couldn't be done. I'll leave it at that. But today, we did find a way to get that information. And we pulled it up. We've been speaking with our consultant. And I have to tell you, it is 1,000 pages long. And each page could have up to 40 line items on it. And there are probably 13 or 14 columns across. It's a lot. It's so big that we cannot, usually when you call a report from the system, you can save it on the server. It's actually in a cloud that Tyler has. It's too big for the Tyler server. It's too big to put on a thumb drive. It's too big to put on our desktop. We can't email it or certainly can't drag it anywhere. So we're going to have a conversation with them Thursday morning. We'd like not to have to print 1,000 pages. And one of the things we're going to talk to them about is we think we can go in and probably do maybe 18 or 19 a month at a time, and send them that. However, May, June, and July are so busy, we need to do probably one for each month. We'd end up sending them 15 PDFs. We think they want that. We're hoping they could do something else, but that's a discussion we're going to have. They can always certainly come in and look at the information, whatever they'd like, but that's where we are with the things.
Well, John, it'll take a long time to process this digitally, to send them a digital copy of this data.
It would probably take half a day, I think, at least.
Okay.
I don't think it would be more than a day of somebody doing that, but it's a lot of time for one report.
Yes. Absolutely.
It would make more sense to do a quarterly report as opposed to every single monthly transaction. Oh my God.
Yeah, well, the quarter we can do is July, August, and September, because July and August, we don't have the payroll. Most of the people come back in the end of August. So that one probably, yes.
Wow. Those are basically the two items on our agenda.
Yep.
Do any of our subcommittee members have any additional questions for John already?
Can you keep us apprised to how you make out Thursday?
Oh, sure. Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
We're looking for the most efficient way to do that. There's certainly the way I described, if nothing else, that's the way the information will go, printed and mailed. So it will go, but like to make things modern.
So you were able to, between the two systems, get that information.
Right. So what happened was, the software that we'd used here for many years, the company that supported it said they weren't going to do that anymore. So ourselves and probably close to 20 or 30 districts in Connecticut had to find new software, and we did. But I think perhaps because we were remote or some of the changes, they started the year out on the old system, even though it could not be supported. And for about 6 months, things went the way they they always went for years. But in January of that year, they had a recommendation to switch the payroll over to the new system. So for the remaining 6 months of the year, or half the payroll was paid out of the new system. Now they get to the end of June and they have to report these kind of things like I just described out of one system, a trial balance and stuff. So what they had started to do was they would take batches of information. So if they ran a check run for $400,000 and maybe it was 80 checks and things like that, instead of putting those in the new system check by check, they put the whole batch in there. It was the right amount, but they did that for months. So for a number of months, they were working two systems. Now the auditors come around and say, hey, from your new system, give me all the detail that ties in. It's not there. It never was there. So that really was the problem. I think, hindsight's 2020 and, there was the pandemic, people were home and working remotely. But I think the decision to put the payroll onto the new system in January was a poor one. I would not have recommended that. I know why they did it. They were afraid that when they got to the end of the calendar year, the W-2s wouldn't come out right or would be hard to do because they were coming from two parts of software. But I think what they didn't know is the software today, especially what we have, is very, very intelligent. It had no problem combining the two systems in other places and would not have here. But I guess they probably didn't know that. And I know the person advising them, he's very good, but it just wasn't the right recommendation to make looking back.
So John, would it be your considered an expert opinion that we will not have these difficulties next year? We're looking inward. I have some ideas. Eddie has put some good ones together. We're going to sit down with the auditors and go over those. I don't want to belabor it, but auditors can do things two ways. They can, when they're doing the city financial statements, there's a lot of schedules and notes and things like that. Either they can create those themselves, or most of them, or they can ask you to do it and they'll come check your work. It's a lot less expensive if your own staff creates all the materials. So the city of Danbury has selected the second approach where everything's put together and then it gets examined. And I think that works fine when your auditors are coming on site, they're coming on location. But when you try and do that remotely, it's very, very difficult. I think almost impossible because as I led off with, there's so many places you look at a piece of paper or a schedule, unless someone's telling you, here's this and here's that, you're trying to figure it out. You may get confused by the heading. And when you're not talking to people and you're only emailing back and forth, the process really, really slows down. And that takes us a time out from us trying to get school started, the end of August, beginning of September. That's our busiest time to have to do additional work. So one of the suggestions I'm going to make has to do with the banking. And most cities and towns, the town or the city treasurer controls the bank accounts, the bank reconciliations, things of that nature. Here we do that. And I'm not sure we really need to do that. It goes back. But I want to sit down with David St. Hilaire and say, what are the advantages to that? And I also think with Eddie and I being here in the summer this year, all of those 21 things, they'll get done before they ask for them. And we know what they are and we'll do them. We'll get going.
you have time in July to do some of those things, not in September. So some moves like that. Our staff here is familiar now with the system. It's one system. We'll be able to get those. The struggle has been trying to explain things that happened well before Eddie and I got here, and then to demonstrate those from the system. And those won't happen again.
Understood. Because you came on board in October, correct?
Last end of September.
End of September.
Yep.
And once again, I commend you for your efforts.
Well, thank you. Eddie, too. We're a team.
Eddie.
Yep.
Yankees win. Teresa, question.
Two things. One, with all the, to be sure, no more than, we're not using the old system anymore. We're done.
We wrote our last check. It might have been January or December. We use it to look things up.
Okay, yeah, but I mean, we're not posting to that system.
No, this year was all one system.
Okay, and then the second question is, so all the things, questions that the city wants, we're assuming they're going to ask for the same next fiscal year. Is that correct? So we will be prepared?
Yes. Every year, not every year, but some years there are new requirements. They get their requirements either from the AICPA or GASB. Sometimes the state of Connecticut says, we'd like you to do something different. For example, they have some new requirements this year to look carefully at the ESSER funds and the CARES Act money that came in. So they've done some more checking, done some more. And, every year there might be something new that comes up, but it's hard to say this early. I know of nothing yet.
So it's not going to be a completely different setup next fiscal. I mean, so you're guaranteed pretty much, 8 out of 10 are going to be the same.
Yeah, they change the accounting rulemaking body. I know maybe all have heard of FASB for corporate accounting and financial accounting standard boards. There's one for governmental accounting too called GASB, and it's the same thing. Every year or two, they put out some new rules that say you need to report this in the back of your book or report it a certain way. But there are none that I know of that are new for the current year. There are a couple new, the audit they're doing, but nothing new that I'm aware of.
So that was the 21 extra questions that we did not anticipate then back.
No, I thought the questions that came in, I'll be honest, we thought we had gotten those before. Some of them we're pretty sure we answered before. There was nothing, there might have been, there was nothing even on ESSER with that. They were all things that have been around for a few years. They want to see trial balances for each of the funds we maintain. They want to see our bank statements. They want to see that they've been reconciled. Different listings. Our year ends June 30th. They want to make sure that things are in the right year, not the new year, not the old year, or vice versa. So they'll say, give me a listing of all the checks that you wrote after July 1st for the old year. So we do that, but that's been around for a long time.
So are you able to give us a number? How many things generally you have to submit every year? Just an idea.
Well, I've been looking for the original list. I actually called Frank Conley. He showed it to me my first day. He wasn't able to come up with. I'd like to do that because that's what I want to talk with David St. Hilaire about and say, look at all these things. Is there a good way to do those? It's lengthy. We're a big operation, so. And they're thorough.
I thank you. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Chair members or subcommittee members, any additional questions? Committee members, any additional questions? Gladys Cooper, are you on board?
Yes. Just a quick question. I don't know how simple the answer is, and maybe I missed it along the way. Could you sort of explain to me, how do you zero out all these accounts, the objects accounts, and at any point will there be a number attached to those object accounts that are all zero?
Ms. Cooper, you mean the general fund zero accounts?
Yes, all the objects accounts where there's complete zero. I can't remember the first or second page. If you start with teaching, the top of that.
So I'm looking at it right now. So for example, assistant principal, right? There was a budget.
So I guess my question is, how did you zero the number that was supposed to be there, or was that number supposed to be there, to zero?
So if you remember, some of the other lines had huge positive lines. So they weren't budgeted correctly on one line versus the other line. A lot of that had to do, as John mentioned, due to the two systems being merged. Okay. We weren't here at the time, so we don't know if, for example, if they budgeted $1 million on one line and then budgeted $2 million on another line. It was, one might have been less, one might have been more. And that's what took us a while to go through it and make sure that it was budgeted correctly and also that it was encumbered correctly for the remainder of the year.
So what you're saying, the zero is going to stay completely like this?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Some lines, you'll see some lines may change. For example, if we hire a teacher in the next 6 weeks for whatever reason, right? Then it'll hit that teacher line that's showing a positive of $51,000 because that's a vacancy that we're covering.
Okay. And and I think that'll go right back to the health insurance object. I can't remember what page it is. I didn't have fully the time to completely go through this, but that's what caught my eye. The health insurance is going to zero itself out.
So I'm looking at it right now. The health insurance is page 2. That's the 5,200 line. Right now, we budgeted $22 million. We've expended $17 million, and then there's $4.9 million encumbered for the remainder of this month in May and the remainder of in June. So that should cover that. If there's any surplus for whatever reason, based on if there's a surplus, or the other way too, it depends on claims, then we've worked very closely with our claims person, our consultant. So we talk probably every other week or so just to make sure there's no surprises.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Madam Chair Shaleski, I apologize. I should have recognized you first, ma'am. Do you have any questions for John already?
You're fine. You're fine. I think Mr. Walston has something.
Mr. Walston, sir.
Good evening, everybody. Hi, Mr. Russo. So I just wanted to make the committee aware and the members of the board who are also attending aware. At our last board meeting, I had suggested that this would be the meeting in which we would discuss next year's budget so that this subcommittee can make a recommendation to the board. I want to share with the board, there is a need to schedule one more finance committee meeting before our board meeting next week.
I am sensitive to that, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Russo. And I just wanted to make the committee aware that the cabinet and I, we have had a number of discussions now trying to reconcile the decision by City Council regarding the budget for $141 million. And so given our enrollment increases and the challenges that we've been talking about really for the last couple of years, particularly on the heel of the pandemic with the challenges trying to support social emotional as well. We are in a position where we have to make some really tough decisions. And so I know going into the pandemic, when we started to, when we first started to receive the monies from the relief grant, we knew this year, next year, and the year after, we would be faced with some very tough decisions because it's, quite frankly, it's very difficult to provide relief without hiring staff to provide that support for kids. We have hired people to provide support, but the reality is we've also hired people to address enrollment, and that staff has come from grants that will be expiring soon, and so it's a combination of a number of things, and frankly some things that we will be presenting back to the board prior to our next meeting. And so I'm hoping we can get a date either next Monday and Tuesday, and make sure we can have in the packet on Friday for the committee to review our recommendations for the 22-23 school year budget. But the team and I still needs a couple more days. We're faced with a lot of tough decisions, and frankly, some decisions about how we're going to address this financial cliff that's in front of us.
All right. I am taking a look at a schedule possibly for next Tuesday. Bring it. Committee members, I prefer it not to be on Monday, on a Monday.
And I actually cannot do Tuesday. I have the teacher
of the year.
Yeah.
Unless we do it at 6 o'clock.
Well, the Teacher of the Year program starts at 5:30.
Okay, so Monday isn't going to work.
Yeah.
And I'm just assuming you'd prefer at least a day before the board meeting, but I don't know if it's like we're struggling with time now.
Can we do like 7 o'clock in the morning, Tuesday?
Hang on.
8 o'clock?
I'm retired. I'm not even up at 8 o'clock.
Oh, get over it. You're
No
working.
way. I worked way too hard to get up in the middle of the night for a volunteer job. I said to
Oh,
Listen.
yeah. Stop complaining. You're
I'm
a
not
big boy.
complaining. I am exercising my freedom to.
Well, then 7:30.
You'll be alone.
It's Zoom. We can do Zoom, can't we?
Very good.
What about
That's
a noon? What about a lunch?
Lunch would be good.
Well, that certainly works for me. I'm assuming that would be fine also with
That's right for me.
Eddie and John.
Okay.
I can do noon on Tuesday, the 24th, correct?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
How
Mr.
long do you
Russo, does
think
that
it'll
work
be?
with you and the committee? I think we can accomplish this in an hour. Maybe a little less.
Okay.
I mean, it won't take us long to present. I think it's really going to depend on the feedback and the questions. And like I said, we will have the packet available for you on Friday.
Wonderful.
Let
All
us
right.
never negotiate out of fear, but let us never fear to negotiate. John F. Kennedy. So we're going to next Tuesday at noon, or next Monday at noon.
Tuesday works for me if that works for the team.
Tuesday works for me.
Tuesday. Hey,
I can do Tuesday at noon. Louisa?
thank you. Tuesday, 12 noon. And I totally screwed up my calendar because I had to schedule an appointment for 2024. And oh yeah. Okay, Tuesday. And what day does that fall on, Terry?
May 24th.
Okay. 24, okay. 5/24 at noon. Terry, that's a nasty laugh, Terry. Oh my God.
I can't believe it. You're groaning about an earlier meeting. About 12 noon is good.
Well, you better believe it, girl.
12 noon is good.
Okay, I will speak with Kara Pompano to send out a invite to the committee.
Because I'm sure like possibly Rachel has children to get ready for school and needs to. Kate, I'm sure Kate's a busy person. And 7:30, I mean, Eddie and John, and
They're already at work. They're already at work, Al.
All right. Go ahead. Oh, what a nasty. I'll pass. Noon on the 24th, Teresa. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? God bless
Aye.
you all.